Hi, everyone. Welcome to another amazing topic of conversation. I want to thank my sponsors, the Health Channel. So please sign up for their newsletter with everything regarding your health. If you need an office space, whether if it's for 1 hour or a virtual office, Alexa's Workspace will be able to help you. And if you want to become your own entrepreneur, please go to hermosamujer.com and they will be able to help you open your own company and have your own boutique online. So, Claudia, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Uh, we were talking about what Cumple 360 is. And basically, I was totally confused on what you guys do and why was it needed. But it ends up being that it's like a cultural barrier when you open a small business and that you're all left alone.
Uh,
So go back a little bit and talk about how the Latin population in the US make up for 20% of the businesses and how small business are considered of 100,000 or less. And these are the people that want to do everything themselves.
well, we make 20% of the population, but for the most part, most the Latino communities tend to be entrepreneurs, and they tend to open their own business as opposed to go work for somebody. That tends to be typical in our community. Um, Also, as we discussed, a lot of our businesses, they tend to be in the Hispanic community, tend to be micro businesses, which they make less than 100,000. And the reason for that is that they don't have the resources, the tools, or they don't have the knowledge how to grow bigger and get into, and increase their business like everybody's dream is. And as we talked about before, this was kind of like the inception of Cumple 360 that we wanted to, because me and my partners were all attorneys and we seen it in personal practice that we see, or we see that there's businesses that they get formed, either by an accountant, they do themselves, whatever it is, they get formed, and then that's it. They're left on their own. And not everybody goes to an attorney or an accountant or anybody that can help them out. And we understand that there was a need for somebody else to help them out and to help them with this that necessarily wanted to go to an accountant. And I think it's also like we talk about it's cultural, right? Like I think non-Hispanics tend to be more of DIY. They're willing to like do it themselves and they want to. Well, as Hispanics, we actually we're I think as a community culturally, we like community. We like helping. We like to get help. We like to help each other. And I think we don't like to do this on our own. And this is the inception of like I said, Cumple 360 to provide this help for our um in this gap that we saw in the community for when if you had you created your company and then you just didn't know what to do next so that you keep it maintained and you have everything in order so then you can go and do and shine and go do whatever you do best and you the reason why you created a business whether um to set up companies like for entrepreneurs like your sponsor or for any health thing that they can just have their magic and not have to worry about all the compliance that you have to do.
So, will that be, for example, it is not a lack of information because the information is out there. But do you think it's either a lack of just looking deeper into what is needed, or maybe a lack of resources that they think, okay, I'm hiring a lawyer and they're going to charge me a lot of money. I'm going to do it myself.
I don't think is necessarily well, there is some more information, but there's not necessarily a lot of information as much in Spanish, right? There may be more in English, and then they may not necessarily know where to find it. Like if you go to like the government websites and things like that, they may not necessarily know where to find them. And in those websites, not necessarily they are in Spanish information. Some have them, some don't. So I think it's a combination of both. And a lack of resources Yes, it's not necessarily money per se. I think it's a more of a, um, they just, especially if the US is not their country, if they came to the US or if they're outside the US even more because the laws are different, they get scared, they get confused, and it's just more of a confusion. That's what I meant by lack of resources. Not necessarily the money. I think some
It's
of them
lack,
are,
okay, to know what to do.
oh, like, yeah, what to do. And because it is different here in the US, certain things that are in our country. For instance, in Panama, you will never go, it will never be criminal, like if you choose not to pay your taxes, right? Or here in the US, if you generally choose not to pay your tax, it could become criminal. So things like that people don't know about, and then all that confusion. And the laws themselves are different. Those systems, legal systems, the US system from outside of the US.
So if somebody wants to do business in the States, they necessarily need to have a company in the States?
A lot of people, well, it could be two things. See, some people, they come to their business with their foreign company, but it creates headaches. So a lot of them open a company in the US, and you can open a company in the US. You don't need to physically live here, but then you need to know the rules how to run that company. And that's where they hit a bump in the road. But yes, you can open a company,
But
and most people want to.
correct, but I understand that opening a company in the US also requires a lot of compliance.
Well,
So
yes, opening the company, but it's not only just the opening the company, but
yeah,
it's then
it's
every
just that
year after.
every year you have to report taxes and report activities and so forth.
And
Um,
file your annual reports. And then and now we have with the beneficial ownership interest report, if there's any changes, you have to do extra reports to the government and things like that people don't know about it.
so are they able to open a bank account even if they're not in the States, but they do have a company in the States?
Sometimes you can. It depends on your accountant. But I'm sorry, it depends on the banker sometimes, but a lot of times they are required to come to the US and open a bank account.
Okay. So let me ask you a little further down the road. Opening a company, going through compliance, yes, but it goes beyond that. So what else are you able to do for them, especially for the Latinos who are not understanding the whole compliance? And I know that the Latin community has a lot of resilience.
Yes.
And they go even beyond, like, I'm opening a company and so what, and I'm gonna make it, and the American dream. And then they figure out, oh, what did I do? And they correct it on the way, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I think is any entrepreneur, any business owner, any emprendedor that has that resilience, that grit. I mean, I think you have to be a little bit, willing to do that to open a business. As a business owner myself, I say that, right? I think the biggest thing that we give a Cumple 360 is like that peace of mind, that knowing that at least your compliance part you're taken care of and you don't have to worry about that, right? That your compliance part is
So what makes it
is
different from just hiring a lawyer?
we are not a law firm, so we only part the compliance part. We what we do though is we do go through all like the process. So let me explain to you the process. I think that would be helpful. So we actually, what we do is we make sure that you're in compliance with all the states, right? That your company is registered because a lot of times people, they open their company and then they forget or they're not aware that they have to renew it every year. So I personally have seen clients that they're running around with their company. They swear that they are their company's in compliance, but the renew is actually being closed by the state. So that's step one. We make sure that you're good
Step one.
because it's very important.
Well,
Uh,
actually, yes, because I saw the other day that I was looking by coincidence. I needed an information and I went to Sunbiz.
yes.
And it said that it was inactive. I go, what do you mean inactive? And it was a stupid thing that I didn't renew something after I don't know how many, 15 years, 20 years. And so, yes, I would have loved that somebody tell me, we did it for you. You're
Yeah.
okay.
So we take care of that every year too. And then step two, we do what we call a sanity check. So we look through all your corporate books because everybody gets a corporate book, right? And then they're all blank. Nobody signed. I seen companies that are generating seven figures that have operating agreements with no signature and things. So we check that for you because it's very
But wait
important.
a second, okay, and do we really need it down the road if the corporate book is not filled?
Well, that's part, I mean, depends. Like some states require
Right.
you to have like a lot, some lot of foreigners like to open companies in Delaware and they require to actually have corporate
An
minutes.
operating
Yeah,
agreement and
an annual
corporate.
minute. And the reason for an operating agreement really is because by default, the state of Florida gave you a an operating agreement, but you can go ahead and you can change that if you want. If you want to, you can change the default rules. But if you don't, then you're playing under rules that you didn't even know that you were playing. So that's why if you have more than one partner, if you're by yourself, then you
Correct.
can get away. But if you have more than one partner, you should have an operating agreement. And once more, I've seen operating agreements with multiple partners. Business is making over $1 million a year, and there is no sign operating agreement, and the partners are fighting. So things like that. So
So
we check all
wait,
that. Yeah.
so if they don't have an operating agreement, you will come in and help them do an operating agreement or no?
No, we're not a law firm, right? So we don't help them do an operating agreement, but what we do is we tell them these are the things you are missing to have your business in compliance. And then
So
we tell them,
you refer them, so you're like a referral source for small businesses.
yeah, we can get them attorneys if necessary. We'll find them attorney and we can refer them. And then the next step after we do that process, the next step is that we keep you in the maintenance plan. And the maintenance plan is that every month we check to make sure you're still everything's good with this state. And if there's any changes, we make sure to report them on your behalf to the state or FinCEN now that sometimes is required. And then we send you reminders. Like now, on Monday, if you're an S corp, March 15 is deadline, but it's on a weekend, so it's be Monday that you have to file your tax returns if you're a partnership or an S corp or a C corp, and we remind you of that, so you don't miss to do an
Unless
extension.
unless you do an extension, correct?
Yes,
But you have to do an extension.
correct, but we remind you to do that because, like, talking about because I'm a tax attorney, so we all have a little bit of different backgrounds, me and my partners. And I actually have a case right now. He's a U.S. citizen. He lives in Israel, and he thought his accountant was filing his tax returns. So he calls me because now he owes. The only reason now that he knows he owes money is because they revoke his passport. Because if you don't pay, they can revoke your passport, the US government.
And that's how the only way he found out he wasn't paying taxes?
That his accountant wasn't filing his tax returns that he had prepared for him. But if we, because one of the things that we do is we also monitor your tax records. So if any notice gets sent, we get a copy and we'll let you know you receive a notice. So had he got it, because the IRS had to have sent me a lot of notices to get to the point where they're revoking his
Were
passport.
they
Yeah,
correct?
but he didn't know because he was in Israel. He's not getting his mail. He's going somewhere else here in the US that he's not getting. His accountant was never doing the things that it was supposed to do.
So revoking his passport, the US passport?
No, his accountant wasn't filing tax returns. So because the IRS, if you don't do certain things, that's one of the last things they do. They revoke your passport. But it got to that point. So now we have to undo all this stuff. But had he had a service where he's being reminded and at his company, making sure his company's doing everything correctly, he wouldn't be
So,
there. And that's part of what we do at Cumple 360.
so for example, now he's getting like a huge bill from the IRS
Mhm.
with backlog and
Mhm.
multas and the whole thing.
Yes, and that's how we're helping him now. But it was avoidable. And I think that's, at the end of the day, I think we give you peace of mind. That's one of the main purposes of the company, is to give you peace of mind, so you can just, like we talk about, go do the awesome thing that you're meant to do. Because we all have gifts here that we are brought to help out and shine, and that's the purpose. And and we can make mistakes. I made mistakes, tax mistakes, and I'm a tax attorney, so
We
all
all
my
make
first.
that mistakes.
No, no, I'll admit it, because when I first started my business, I was wanting to implement this tax activity so that I will save some taxes. But I got busy because, when you open your business, you're doing 10 different jobs at the same time. You're the
Yeah,
marketer,
you're
you're a
all alone.
salesperson.
You're
Yeah.
correct. Are you also offering guidance on marketing?
No, we're not. We're just doing the compliance part.
So it was very interesting.
Mhm.
I didn't know, and half of the people didn't know, for example, the Sunbiz, that they need to go and register in Sunbiz if
Yes.
you're in Florida.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and that's another thing, because a lot of times they tell you go open a company in Delaware because it's what you know, but then you come open do some business in Miami or in Florida. I'm in Miami, in South Florida. And then next thing you know, you're supposed to register in Florida too.
And why to explain to me what are the tax benefits on opening a company in Delaware? I'm assuming it's because of taxes, right?
No, I think it's because
Or-
in Delaware, it's a little bit harder to find out who the managers are. So a lot of people from Latin America, they don't want anybody to know anything, so they do it. That's the reason.
Oh, that's the reason, not
Yeah,
because of taxes?
no, they do. But the irony is that if the only thing you can find out in Sunbiz in Florida is the managers, you don't find out who the owners are. So I don't, if you're gonna be here, I don't see the purpose of going to Delaware and opening up yourself in another state, because then you have to worry about rules in two states.
Taxes in two states.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, they have a franchise tax, so you have to worry about two states. So you might as well just open wherever you're doing your
So
business.
if you have a company that's already, for example, in Latin America and you want to come here, you cannot, it's not easy doing the business from the company outside of Latin America.
Um, what do you mean, like to bring your business here, your
Well,
foreign business?
not even doing business here. For
Oh,
example, now that look, here Zoom connected the whole world, and if it's a
mm-mm.
service company, do they really need to open a company in the US if they want to service clients in the US?
Well, it depends. Sometimes they do it for tax reasons, and it may be their own country's tax reasons that they want a company in the US here, so that they can separate the income that's generated outside of their country. So that they do that for those reasons. Sometimes they are required because of their business to have like at least it may require them to have a US company, and just it may be tax driven or not. There's companies that come here,
But
and
they're mandatory.
it's not mandatory that you open a business to do this. But then if you have like an office or something, you do have to register with the state
Well,
of
no,
Florida to do
enough.
business.
Yeah. Okay, but if it's like a virtual something,
You don't need
it's
to,
not mandatory.
but for instance, if you're gonna sell, I know that if you're gonna do have an e-commerce, a lot of like the platforms require you to have a US company. Like
So then,
I'm
yes.
pretty sure Amazon requires, and I think like all those things. So if when you have you're part of a platform e-commerce, they require a US company. That's why a lot of people tend to open too.
Do you help also with nonprofits?
That is in could be right now we're not looking into doing that, but that could be something that we could probably put in
Do
the
in the
roadmap.
future.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Claudia.
No,
I
thank you
guess this
so
was
much.
for those that want to find more information on the compliance and everything. The only way to go is like the government's website, right?
Um, well, I mean, obviously, if you want information on compliance, you can look at the different government websites and you can find it. Yes, that is available. But I guess that's the whole point that we're
The
trying to
wording
do.
is so impossible to read that that's where you come in handy.
Um, I guess it may be, but I think it's just a lot. I think I read one time that it takes to open a company, it takes 50 hours for a non-lay person, for a non-lawyer to go open it, or somebody who's not used to it, it would take them 50 hours the first time they open the company. So imagine that every year having to worry about your compliance. So that's where we come in, and to keeping up because laws changes, right? So that's why we're here to help you with that and
Got
save
it.
you the time. Mhm.
Thank you so much. And to everyone, above all, stay safe and hopefully there will be peace by the following week.
Mhm.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.